What's up, guys? Michael Gilley here from FloMarching, and this is from the Drill Down. We're going to hit a bunch of different topics today, including Blue Knights Percussion, Cavies uniforms. We're also going to talk a little bit about some visual proficiency. So joining me today is Andy Shama, and we also have Andy Connors back there in the back. So Andy Shama, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. So we're going to jump into what we've been seeing showing up this past week. One of the things that's been kind of queuing up has been Blue Knights and their video series with the Vic Firth video series. So we're going to go ahead and get that pulled up on the video. And I'm just going to kind of talk to a little bit about what we're seeing in that video.
Yeah.
When you're listening to the writing that's going on right here, I really like what Mike Jackson and the team there at Blue Knights are doing. The rhythmic motifs that they're bringing into here are something that's kind of refreshing from a percussion standpoint. It's not just ram notes over and over again. It's take a motif, take a melody, take something that you might hear in the horn line, and repeat it with different variances throughout the drum line, throughout the battery. So it actually creates a very musical writing. Yeah, definitely. Which you guys, and he's got a ton of dynamic changes, a lot of variety in the rhythms, and you can actually watch their visual program from a WGI standpoint, and you can kind of see them doing a lot of that indoor West Coast kind of things that are happening with these guys.
What's cool from a horn line perspective, just off the bat, is that you can still get all of these intricacies with a missing bass.
They're missing bass too. Hopefully, it's not anything kind of injury related. Maybe just had a bad case of taco salad or something like that, and he'll be back. He'll be back the next day out.
Yeah,
but
hopefully.
What's interesting to note as well too is he's using a lot of times in this rhythmic patterns. You'll see rather than writing in 12/8, which what he does right here at the end, and rather than writing in 12/8, you would write it with eighth notes with triplets kind of cued over it. So writing it in a 12/8 fashion actually kind of lends it to be played a little bit differently than you would play them as they're written as triplets.
Sure.
So you kind of get that little bit of that metering feeling, and then right there at the end. It's like measure 66, 67, something like that. It's the last 2-3 measures. He actually has a rhythm that sounds kind of like an old school roll-off. Yeah. And it immediately made me think of 1999 Santa Clara Vanguard when they've got this right before they hit their final push in the Samuel Barber movement of their show. It sounds like this jum jum jar jum jum jar. And they've got a very similar rhythm in there, and I was just like, oh, I don't know if he's throwing an ode to the old Santa Clara with Jim Casella, or if he's just that was what he came up with. So I'm really excited to see Blue Knights right now, especially from a percussion standpoint. These guys are jamming, and they're coming out the season like right now, ready to go. Yeah,
and that roll off, that motif that you mentioned, it's so recognizable. No matter what section you're in, because every corps is still doing parades. We're still going out and making appearances in the public through the what originated drum corps. So it's just so cool that they're able to use these motifs and sprinkle it into the shows, modern shows, and also shows from the '90s and even before then.
Yeah, and let's not take away from the visual side of things what Blue Knights are doing with their uniforms.
Yeah. So the Blue Knights in particular. This season have really, like the Academy, like we mentioned in our From the Tower podcast last week, they've found a perfect equilibrium between a very show-specific uniform and also, fitting the style that they've established over the last few years.
So what are you seeing in the uniform right now for Blue Knights?
Yeah, so they've got an eye, like an iris from an eyeball, printed onto their uniforms, and it looks super cool. It almost has like an electrical effect. Thank you. Yeah, we'll pull that up, and you can see there's the black part of the eye right on her ribs and connects to her arm, and it's a new style, but it follows this pattern and this color blocking that they've done previous years, and with the sequins as well. And I've actually heard that they will be sprinkling in different colors within different sections of the drum corps. And even the color guard will have multiple colors just within the color guard alone. So it's super cool to see the way that these integrate these.
Oh, wow.
They integrate these colors, and you know, play with the visual effect of this uniform.
You also check out with what they actually has with his hand as well too.
Yeah, that's
He's
something
got that
interesting.
thumb cut out to kind of keep the tension on the sleeve down and tight. But yeah, the digital printing on uniforms has been such a big wave here recently.
Definitely.
Using something like your eyeballs, like nature created iris, you know, that's a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah.
Those are pretty stunning, actually. I hadn't really seen them up close yet. And then there you see like the full gamut
bunch of different
color.
colors. It's awesome. And also, you probably noticed that they weren't wearing shakos, which is a big development in drum corps as a whole recently. Is that corps are starting to gravitate away from the shakos to give the viewers and the members themselves, you know, more immersion into their show. So it allows them to perform on a whole new level.
And you get an element of connection, kind of like. It's almost there is that WGI factor on it, but it's almost like if you compare like NBA players versus NFL players. NFL's guys got these big bulky helmets on. They're 50 yards away from them. If you're an NBA player, you don't have a helmet. You're this close to the guy.
Yep. And
there's a element of star recognition.
Yeah, there's that connection that you can create between the fans and the athletes and the performers that you're not really used to getting. So it just allows you to know, you know, from a fan's perspective, it's awesome because you get to see the eyes light up of the performers, and you get to see these emotions that you're not used to seeing on a marching band field, a drum corps field.
Because most of the time it's always been like this is you don't see any of this. Like
that's your sanctuary. Yeah, exactly.
That's where you can kind of hide from it. Cavies also came out with their uniforms as well too, and they had a really, really cool video that they had pulled up, and we're going to try to get that one going as well, too, where they debuted. Actually, we got some pictures. Awesome. Yeah. Where they debuted these uniforms, and it starts off with this all-black, very dark top.
Yeah,
and
I
then
think if we actually go back one photo, you can see the drum majors, or actually one more.
There you
see the drum majors right there. They have that black jacket on, that puffy-looking jacket that they brought out last year, and they will be the whole corps will be wearing them, and then they take them off and reveal these bright green ones that you see here.
And so, from a visual standpoint, when a judge or when a designer is looking at that, you see this massive change you see this massive color change on the field.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to see how they design that into the show as far as making it seamless. Transitions are always the big thing when it comes to show designs. Transitioning from one chunk of the show to the next chunk of the show.
That's just another transition they have to put in their show.
Right, transitioning from one uniform to the next uniform. Can they do that smoothly? Can they do that effectively? And can they do it
without breaking the flow? You know, that's a big thing.
Right. You know, can they do it in such a way that it's going to add to the GE? Because if they don't add, you're almost kind of subtracting from it if you don't do it that way.
It for sure can. And just to mention the color guard uniforms as well, Chris Lugo, the corps director, the executive director of the Cavaliers, talked about showing off the masculinity in the color guard, and it shows, you know, their abs, and it follows their body lines very well, and it takes this tribal feeling and this weird masculinity that the Cavaliers always seem to portray, and, you know, just fits right into that little niche that they do.
And one other thing, they're using the music of Mars this year, and it's a very classic Cavies thing to do, and they're also throwing it back to little portions of their uniforms from 1995, in which they actually have these little in 95 they were huge, like
leather studs, right?
Yeah, like they're studs of some kind. I mean, they're massive in 95. Well, now they've kind of brought it back. So if you look at their gauntlets and you look at like their
sashes
black,
now,
they all have these little studs on them, and it has to be a throwback to 95. And I think he actually mentions it as well too a little bit. But yeah, the color guard uniforms are gorgeous. It's this dark red,
orange,
to fade all the way up into the point where it blends in to the top of their to the top of their shoulders to
Yep.
where it's kind of that flesh color that kind of goes away.
Yeah, and there you can see, you can see it just bleeds the Cavaliers. It really does, and I can't wait to see what they do with the uniforms and how they integrate this
the change,
wardrobe change. Yeah, and that can be really challenging, but I have confidence in them this year.
And it gives an appreciation to the quality of the uniform designing and making as well too,
Absolutely.
especially with the digital printing that you saw from Blue Knights to cabbies to many corps now are using. It actually allows them to use fabrics that are a lot cooler.
Yeah, they feel more comfortable.
They're more comfortable to perform in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less like bulky stuff like hanging off of them. So there's less of a chance of you dropping a gauntlet in the middle of the show, or some chunk of your uniform falling off all over the place.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to dive into something. You wrote a great article regarding visual proficiency and being clean with your feet.
Yeah. One of my favorite captions.
Absolutely. So let's dive into that a little bit. The Best Visual Award is named after a guy.
John Brazali, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he was a DCI Hall of Famer from 1994.
Yep.
And was a drill designer for Phantom Regiment from 75 to 92.
Yeah, and he's been involved in the drum corps community for over 30 years. And he was involved in a group, and then he actually joined the military, and then came back and joined Phantom Regiment on their staff from that 75 to 92 tenure.
Yeah.
So he became a very iconic member of the Phantom Regiment family, so to speak. And really took them to the next level in Drum Corps International.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now we're starting to see uniforms used to be very iconic to the Corps themselves. And now we're starting to see a very dramatic change towards being show-specific with hints of recognizing the Corps. Like we just talked about cabbies. It's very show-specific, but at the same time very distinctively cabbies.
Yep.
Academy, or the Academy, they are doing something very, very similar in that it's very show-specific to what they've got going on.
Yep.
But it's also very much the Academy.
Yeah, you recognize that Corps wherever you are, whatever show you're at. You recognize that that's still the Academy, but they've got this uniform that perfectly fits their show concept for this season.
And you mentioned something that's kind of an interesting part of what you're seeing within the uniforms. Particularly with these guys, they have some coloring that's on the inside there, on the inside of the leg.
There,
Tell us a little bit about, from a visual proficiency standpoint, what that does for a judge when they're up top looking at it.
Yeah, well, it's the judge's job to really interpret every little difference from member to member. And when you have these color blocking, like you see on the Academy and many other drum corps now, it creates a dissonance in what you see with the legs moving, and so that gives them more opportunity to see the clarity from member to member. So a judge has a much easier time, recognizing clean feet, so to speak, and clean drill when the whole corps is moving together, and it looks like a caterpillar whose legs are in sync rather than a caterpillar whose legs are moving down the chain of like a big company front or what have you.
Yeah, so the idea is that if you want to get down to a technical standpoint, they always talk about, on the and count, are your legs, your knees, your ankles crossing each other at the exact same time, to where you have that that scissor-like motion, right? Yeah. Between and what the uniform designs now, what you're seeing is the color changes are actually like visually creating a change in color along with the change of the actual position of the legs with respect to each other.
Yeah, and that goes straight into that GE score, that visual GE score, whatever they call it. Now it's it's gone through a couple changes over the last few years, but effectively it will affect how the fans are interpreting the show, and how the judges interpret the whole show. It's really cool when a corps can do it well.
Right, because there is a plus minus to this factor, and that if you're not executing it just at a very pristine level, it can come back to bite you a little bit as well too.
Absolutely.
BD was real famous with their pinstripe that they had down the right side of their leg.
Yeah, if we can pull up that picture of the Blue Devils. This is from 2015 when I was in this show, and you can see right there that white stripe that just runs down the leg. It really allows the judges to see that clarity when you're purposefully showing it off, or maybe not. It's an opportunity for vulnerability.
Right. Yeah, because it's like you said, if one person isn't doing it correctly, or it's not even necessarily not that they're not doing it correctly, if they're not doing it exactly like the guy next to you, then it amplifies not only them making an error, just like it would amplify if they were doing it correct.
Yeah.
So it's putting a megaphone.
It's putting a megaphone on everyone's legs.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And that's kind of interesting. Like with Blue Knights, they actually have like two completely different colored legs, where you have a very dark. Last year they had the gray and the white. They had one all gray leg and one all white leg.
Yeah, and that can be, even more amplified.
Right. Yeah.
And another example that's kind of different is the Blue Stars. With their new uniforms last year, they had gray backings on the legs, and then it was a navy blue on the front. So that can cause an effect when you turn around, when the whole corps turns around and you've got gray down the bibs, and as opposed to when they are face forward and they have the dark blue.
Yeah, it reminds me of it's funny. It's Blue Devils from 2000. Their color guard uniforms were literally like, there was all color on the front side of the uniforms, but literally like a seam all the way down their pant legs, all the way up their side. The back of their uniform was completely black. And they actually used that as a very effective part of the beginning of the show. They would be marching and doing these 360 drills.
Interesting.
And those were the old uniforms that had the classic blue with the silver belly and then the triangle in the middle.
Yeah.
And when those guys would all turn around, I mean, it was almost like the entire corps was like gone.
Yeah.
And they used that very, very effectively in 2000. And then Bluecoats in 2016. They had this gigantic blue swirl.
Blue swirl, yeah, and the front of the leg, and then they also had one down the back of the other leg. And so when you have them turning around a lot, you can get clarity or you can get dirt. It's just whatever, however hard the member is working. They have to clean their feet to these swirls, basically.
And so, taking all of that into account, you went down and you really kind of broke down like some numbers. And I know you and I know me now, we're both very an analytical type of person.
Yeah.
We really like jumping into numbers and understanding how the numbers are affecting things on the field and off the field as well during rehearsals. But the last 10 years, it's been nuts what BD specifically has done.
Well, and there's only been
visual.
3 corps that have won the High Visual Award in the last 10 seasons, or 11 seasons, 10 years.
3 corps.
3, yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So you had some numbers.
So interesting enough, of the last 10 years, the Blue Devils have won 6 times, I believe. 6 times they've won the High Visual Award, and Crown has won 3 times, and the Cadets have won once in 2011 when they actually won the World Championship. Yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times out of the 10 or 11, since we're considering 11 seasons, the corps that has won the High Visual Award has won first place, the World Championship. So there's an interesting correlation there in that clean feet can often lead you to the championship.
Right. It's kind of wild.
It is, yeah.
So it not only that, but you're seeing like these high numbers within the award itself. BD's averaging like 19.706 at the end of the season. The last 10 years, the average winners of your visual award have been 19.663 for the last 10 years. So I mean, that's nuts.
That's a really high score. And hopefully, as corps get better and better and improve year by year, maybe staffs will stick around for long tenures, and then that's how you build up this improvement year by year. And that's really one of the biggest ways to gauge achievement from a corps perspective, is that they want to improve every year and build upon the progress they're making year by year. And that can be more rewarding even than winning one year and then losing the next 3.
And I think this long-term success that you're seeing out of these couple of programs are a factor of what you're seeing with their staffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
These guys have been there for a while. Like
yeah. The Blue Devil staff has been together. The design staff has been together for the last 20, 30 years.
Right.
And the visual techs are actually young. They bring in new visual techs, and they keep old ones, but they bring in a bunch of new talent that have marched the Corps, in the last 6 years, 5 years. They've won the World Championships in 2009 and 2010 and 2012. And then they teach the Corps the next years. So so they get to build off that legacy and, keep improving the Corps' technique as the marching arts evolves.
And what's kind of funny is you think about marching is at this high level at DCI World Championship level. You would think that by that point in time, whoever it is that you're marching for, whether it's BDE cadets, Crown, Cavies, Santa Clara, it doesn't matter. You would think by that point you're an efficient enough marcher that fundamentals is not something that you do on a daily basis. But you kind of brought up something that was kind of interesting when you were marching Inc., that during finals week, you guys kind of went back to your fundamentals a little bit and really started honing in on cleaning feet, right?
Yeah, well, it's not only going back to the fundamentals, it's cleaning stuff that we've already considered clean. So it's really washing up everything with the finest soap and sponge you can find. And so in particular in 2015, we rehearsed at the Indianapolis Colts training facility, and we had this outdoor turf field, and we were told to put tape on every single one of our dots that we rehearsed for a single day. And so by the end of the day, you're going up in the box just for fun during a water break or whatever, during your off time at a meal. You're going up in the box, and you can look out on that field and see just like paint cover or tape. It's little painter's tape covering the entire turf field outside, and it just like it speaks to how much they really clean every little dot. It's like count by count, really.
Right.
Yeah. The smallest phrases of a drill set. If it's 8 count phrase, we're cleaning counts 2, count 4, stopping on count 6. Every rep, just clean.
So, as a member, when you're going through this process and as you're learning to march, and whether it's your first year high school band or whether you're a fourth year senior or an age out, visual is something that can never stop being cleaned.
It's one of the most difficult things to master, really.
It really, yeah.
Feet timing from a high school instructor's perspective is something you'll struggle with almost all season long. It's just something that you always have to get on your students about. And I would say for the first part of the drum corps season and spring training, it's something that visual instructors really just nag on. They have to be so adamant about clean feet timing, heel down on the beat, and making sure you're rolling through for the full length of the beat that you're supposed to be.
And as we're about to exit spring training, the different styles of marching, shall we say, whether it's the roll step that cabbies use, or straight leg, or whatever kind of style that you want to talk about it, all of these corps and all of these members should have a very, very sound fundamental understanding of what their feet should be doing mechanically.
Yes. At this point, it should be at a high level, and that's what's going to set you up for success towards August. It starts now. It doesn't start in August or July, mid-July. It starts now.
Right. So by the time that they're coming out of, they're getting ready to do their first show, all the mechanics should be locked up.
Yeah, it should be muscle memory.
Yeah, it should be muscle memory. And at this point now, it's just cleaning the execution. Like, hey, you were just a little bit ahead of the form here, or hey, you were just a little bit behind it, or your body position isn't just quite the same, or your whatever it might be. All those tiny little details are what starts getting knocked out.
Yep.
So yeah, man. Coming out of spring training, you've been getting your butt kicked.
30 days, yeah.
Yeah. You've been hating it for a little bit. There's a momentum coming out of spring training that you've been just dragging on, and it's really, really important to push through that and carry that through. So guys like Blue Knights, when they're taking these musical motifs that they've been rehearsing on a daily basis, not that they're not going to rehearse it anymore, because they are, but carrying that momentum so that they don't plateau too early is going to be a big key. Carrying the fundamentals of their visual program throughout the entire season is going to be a big key. So
Yep.
it should be an interesting summer. So make sure you guys jump on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also now on Snapchat, and it's all at FloMarching. So make sure you guys check all of that out there. We've got the DCI tour premiere that starts on Thursday night
in theaters. Yep.
Thank God we got Drum Corps back again.
Yep. Can't wait.
And if you want to go check that out, make sure you go to fathomevents.com if you want to go watch the show at the movie theater. That's where it's going to be streaming at. And then our first live competitive show that we're doing is the DCI West show. That's going to be in Stanford, California. That's going to be awesome. I can't wait to get out there.
I love that show. One of my favorites.
So I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be checking it out. So make sure you jump on FloMarching.com, get signed up there to watch the events, and we will see you guys all summer long. So for Andy Connors, back there in the back, hooking up all of the videos and everything, for Andy Shama right here, I'm Michael Gilly. This has been The Drill Down, and we'll see you guys later.